This is probably the last episode we get to record today, but we've cleaned up the side missions without even noticing it. It's right
they
above
see
us.
us.
I'm gonna look that up though, like, because I know we're missing a lot of games that were big 360 sellers. Some of the more unique ones, like which I think is probably the best part of your question, Viva Pinata, Crackdown. Those are two franchises, two IPs that they had built, that they killed off. Fusion Frenzy, oddly enough, had a sequel. What Microsoft was trying to do was mimic the Nintendo strategy. One of the reasons I still really love the Elect is they were like, all right, what makes game consoles good? Well, first, the graphics are good, they run well, like they're well optimized for the games they get, and that's what the Xbox is. It's well optimized to run Xbox games. And then what do you need? Well, you need good games for that system. Nintendo's mastered that. You always have the Nintendo game, Metroids, all the various Mario games, Zeldas, all that shit, all that good stuff, Kirby's. So Microsoft, like, their answer to Mario Party was Fusion Frenzy. So it'd be like a little more mature, a little more gritty, but it was still a party game. Their answer to Zelda was Fable. Like, perfect for them. Again, it's more mature, it's more gritty. There was like cussing, there was prostitution, and stuff like that. But Fable was always more of an adventure game than a classic role-playing game, just like Zelda. Of course, they screwed the pooch on that shit. And because they just like first Peter Molyneux retired, which made sense because he was older, but then they brought it to the Kinect. They turned it into a kids game for the Kinect. Like, you got to know your audience. People who owned an Xbox played Fable. They enjoyed it. So people still play it, for God's sake. Then you had Gears, which was massive. People, like, this is another thing. We've said this a lot today, or I've said it a lot. Like, people forget, but Gears of War was huge. Gears of War 3 was a major launch. And that game was really badass. It was so polished. And Gears of War started as, like, the first game to really pull off cover, extremely nice graphics for the time, especially. And third-person action with cover and make it feel good and not be clunky in the controls and really wonky to shoot. It was a good shooter, and it was a good third-person game. And it was just stiff. You couldn't jump over cover. You had to go around everything. Everything was like 2 or 3 button presses. It was still like a huge leap forward for the genre. By the time you get to Gears 3, everything's like 1 button. A and B is like the 2 buttons. You can jump over cover. You can sprint through things. You can roll. It became a fast game. It felt like a first-person game, but it was in third person. Gears 3 was a huge launch. What happened with the Kinect era? More Gears. That shit was gone too. So it's just been recently. So there's more games though that they Mario. Their Mario was Link's the Time Cat, the Time Sweeper, which had like their whole thing there was they had amazing graphics. Link's the Time Cat pushed the Xbox to its limits. And it was a cat that sweep time. I can't even remember what. Oh.
Seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, it was neat. I don't think I ever beat it. I did put some time into it. But that didn't last long. They killed that idea off pretty quickly, and Microsoft's never had good platformers. Except for like the the stuff that everybody gets. Like what is it? Celeste? Is that the game Celeste? You ever heard of Celeste?
No.
Celeste is like a really good platformer. Guacamelee is a good beat 'em up platformer. The fighting game, they had like Soul Calibur and they had Virtua Fighter. Their racers were Burnout, which was, I don't think those were. And of course they had Forza, which was their Gran Turismo. They didn't need a Mario Kart because they were going for like the Sony thing. Sony had Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo, its whole thing is it was trying to be the most accurate racing simulation game in history. It has such a hardcore community behind it.
Like, how many years later?
Yeah, right. Decades later, people still love even the old Gran Turismo, and they are really, really good. Like you build your racing career up, you gain money, you buy cars, and it's really addictive.
Yeah, now you're starting to cut out.
I'm starting to cut out again. Oh no, it was doing so well. We're almost to this next side mission.
I think it's just when your voice drops too low.
I tend to speak fairly low. Think of another like big Mario game. I'll try to give you an Xbox answer to that.
Mario Galaxy?
Well, all the Marios that are platformers, the idea was Blink's the Time Cat. All the Zeldas, Fable said that. Shooters,
Mario Tennis?
the sports games. Now that's a good one. They had the Fever series. They had this happened industry wide though. So when I was younger, like your age, Tucker, there were tons of different sports games. There was NBA 2K, there was NBA Fever, NBA Jam, NBA Street Ball, and it was all these different companies from THQ Nordic, 2K, EA, all were involved in these different sports games. Like just with the NFL alone, everybody had their own version of it. Of course, then Nintendo being Nintendo had like, they had the Madden games, but they mostly just had bullshit like Mario Football.
Mario Super Strikers.
And then what's even more, it's already odd to make those games, but what's even more odd is they're usually really good.
Down.
I'm coming.
Inside the...
Nintendo makes good games, even though it's like, why does there need to be a Mario Tennis? It's like, oh, it's also tennis game of the year. Shit. So with tennis, they had, I think it was called Virtua Tennis, which was a Dreamcast, a Sega exclusive, and Sega and Microsoft have had a long history of working together. So that got to come to the Xbox. I've sold a couple copies of that before. Virtua Tennis was trying to be the Gran Turismo of tennis. And I like it. It's cool. It's like real modern. But I don't think it exists anymore. Then the tennis, they had, oh God, what did they call it? I think they called it like Live Golf. It did the same thing. It tried to be this really in-depth management simulation game for golf. So EA had Tiger Woods Golf, which is now Phil McElroy, I think, Golf. And Sony had its like own kind of thing, mostly just went with the EA stuff. Xbox had its own version, just like Nintendo, of all the different sports games. And then it had MLB Pitch, or ABL, I think it was called, like Absolute Baseball something. And the same idea. It tried to be like, here's 50,000 stats, here's a full draft system, here's a management system. It tried to be like the PC equivalent to these sports games. And then they had NFL Fever. I actually put a shit ton of time into NFL. And what happened was EA bought exclusivity rights to all the first they won the NFL rights. That went before the Supreme Court. Is could EA buy the NFL license rights out? Buy the license outright. And a lot of people were like, they shouldn't be able to. It's a monopoly. Nobody else will be able to make sports games. The reason they were able to get away with it is because the NFL was cool with it. They wanted to be paid a shit ton of money, which EA agreed to do. And you technically could still make football games. But that one decision is the reason why sports games are shit. There's no competition in the space anymore. There's been some cool football games come out that nobody even really thinks about or appreciates, that have tried to do things differently, but because you can't play the Cleveland Browns or the Philadelphia Eagles or any of that stuff, nobody cares. Few people care. Only the sports fans play those games, and they want to be able to play their favorite teams. So Madden is the same exact Madden, increasingly squeezing the juice out of its fans every single year. The only
like $100 too.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There's only one exception in the whole world of sports games outside of racing games, and that's your wrestling games, the WWE games. Like, tell me the story of how the WWE games managed to make a comeback.
Well,
because 19 was terrible, right?
20 was terrible.
Okay,
19 was okay. 20 was terrible because it was riddled with bugs and glitches, and they still made people pay for it like it was a AAA game. And they took a year off, and they came back with 22, and people say it was a good improvement, a step in the right direction, and people say it's the best 2K game they've made so far. And then 23 came out, and it's just a better 2K22. They didn't add too much, but they still made it better. Like, they added a new way to pin somebody, like a new mechanic for it.
This is 23.
Yeah.
Aren't their
They added-
graphics like amazing in 23?
Yeah. They're amazing like every single one.
Oh. Yeah. But
Like 2K15's graphics still look really good. But you start to notice them age when you get to 14.
what the
But
the big story with WWE though is like it had a really bad game, pissed fans off like yourself that buy it, are actually fans, which is the most important thing for any company. And they took a year off, right?
Right?
Did they take 1 year or 2 years off?
1 year. They came back in 2022.
And that's still considered one of the best, if not the best wrestling game ever, right?
One of the best 2K games. 2K wrestling games.
Well, what's better, WWE 2K22 or Wrestling Empire?
They're both different enough that I can't compare them.
But WWE took a lot of the Wrestling Empire ideas, didn't it?
I don't know.
Well, the manager and the simulation stuff, like build your own wrestler, isn't that...
The build your own wrestler thing has existed back in the 2000s.
Wrestling Empire was known by wrestling fans for giving fans of wrestling, because the creator, what's his name, Mike?
M. Dickey.
M. Dickey is a fan, right? He's actually a wrestling fan. A professional wrestler.
I don't know about that, because he's made very random games.
All right, well, I'm
'cause
taking
he's
stuff that you've told me, seen on YouTube. He's a wrestling fan. That's why he made that game. It's like, he's made wrestling games in the past, right? Before Wrestling Empire.
Yeah, he made Wrestling Revolution, which is kind of like Wrestling Empire.
Yeah, he's got a very distinct style, and he finally made his magnum opus, his crowning achievement in Wrestling Empire. And this really like rough around the edges indie game, which looks totally janky and bizarre, turns out to be one of the best wrestling games ever, one of the best leap forwards for the genre, because he seemed to really understand wrestling, like the drama, storytelling, the super in-depth character creation, the really in-depth simulation. This is all stuff that makes Wrestling Empire strong, right?
I guess one of the really strong things about it is the limitless career mode, because normally with career modes in 2K games, they just give you a couple quests that you do while you just do your career, and after you do all those, you're done. That's it. But with Wrestling Empire, you could play it forever, because it procedurally generates its own situations for you to handle. Like, you'll have bad relationships with refs, and they'll try and make it so that it's harder for you to win. Like, they'll slow count you with pins. They won't count submissions.
Yeah.
And then when you get pinned, they'll fast count you, and if you're getting a submission, they won't rope break you.
So Wrestling Empire actually managed to tread new ground, correct? It is a pioneering game.
It has really cool small details that other people picked up on a lot, which gave it some good quality over the games that were out at the time.
And you have 2019 release, and it's panned, universally panned, buggy, glitchy.
20.
Oh, 20 was the really bad one?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have this shitty game, and suddenly this indie game starts to make real inroads in the wrestling space. And 2022 comes out, and they correct all the mistakes, right?
I think that's how it went, yeah.
You're the one who told me this story, Tuck, of the Great Return. 'Cause you love 22. You actually put a ton of time into 22. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the point I'm making is, so it's like capitalism. Capitalism works unless you don't regulate it. If you don't regulate it, you get 1928, you get Black Tuesday, you get monopolies, you get all the bad things. You get a lot of good things with capitalism, but if you don't regulate it, you get really bad things too. And like slavery and shit is unregulated capitalism. Same thing with the sports games. When there's monopolies, the fans, gaming as an art form, all this shit just suffers because of it. Football games are the same god darn thing every single year because EA bought those exclusivity rights. The only reason that the WWE games have actually become, you're a fan, which again is really important, good, is because guys like M. Dickey are also wrestling fans and make wrestling games. And because wrestling is so already like open, yeah, you're not going to get the stars, which sucks. You don't get Batista. But even, what's the WWE's competition right now? What's that? Is it All Action Wrestling or whatever?
AEW, I think.
AEW, right. So
All Elite Dynamite, or AEW, yeah. All Elite Wrestling.
All Elite Wrestling, they got like Sting and stuff. It's obviously nowhere near what the WWE is, but something interesting about that whole like story arc is sometimes new companies do pop up. Who was the one that actually was it TNA that was actually starting to compete with WWE?
WCW was actually beating WWE at first until WWE just bought them out. Because starting out, WCW was buying out WWE's best stars.
Yeah, that's when they had like New World Order with Hulk Hogan and all those.
Yeah.
So WWE
But
gets competition.
TNA was actually starting to be a slight threat to WWE until they moved to their main show, TNA Impact, to try and compete with WWE's Monday Night Raw. And then they just absolutely got clobbered.
We got to finish this and we got to go. Text your mom that we're leaving. I lost track of time. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there either. But I saw it was 6:03. I know this thing happens at 6:30, so we're gonna have to go. Yeah. So, Vince McMahon's companies honestly benefited from having competition. That's why they're so damn dominant for good or for bad now. Is they're constantly pushed to optimize their product, and nobody's really messing with the NFL. The MLB, the only competition is the fact that basketball and football were going to pass them. And then with all these sports games, you get this generic trite dog shit because why try? I'm already the top, so why try? FIFA is every year is like in the top 3 best-selling games because European football, the #1 sport in the entire world. Football, soccer, shit. They love it, and it sells globally so damn much. And it's almost tragic because follow the blood trail. FIFA was screwing over all these people with these cards and loot boxes and microtransactions, and all of us like more contemporary gamers were like, guys, you sports gamers, you're getting screwed, and if you keep buying this, we're all gonna keep getting screwed. And finally, FIFA fans were like, yeah, you're right, we've had enough of this. Started to speak up about it, and I guess they've toned down some of it, but I think it's still just egregiously monetized. The thing I hate the most about modern sports games is the loot pack system. So in NFL Fever, you could create your own player. If you wanted to name him Drew Brees and do that and make a player that seemed like Drew Brees, go for it. You've got that freedom. You got that customization. Madden 2004, NFL Fever, they took this to the limit. You could, if you had an Xbox Live connection or whatever, internet connection, you could just simulate the NFL draft every year and the roster got updated. They didn't even expect you to buy a new sports game next year. Their idea was like, yeah, this is the only sports game you're going to need for the next years. Just plug it into the internet and do the draft. We'll update the rosters accordingly. You could play scenarios. You could build sports teams. It's just like WWE 2K 22, 23. Basically endless content. Do what you want. And these days, how it works is, say you want Tom Brady. Okay, cool. You buy a loot pack. It's like sports cards, but it's digital shit, so it doesn't cost the company any money, but, makes them tons of money.
Sorry to interrupt you, but one question I have about this is, how is a wounded guy able to cross a river set up an emergency flare and run all the way to this harbor from a bunker while injured.
Well, the most amazing thing is he crossed the river. We can't cross the river, and we're able-bodied. Did your mom text you back?
Not yet. One final message.
So to finish that up, like, oh, I want Tom Brady. So you buy the sports packs. And you buy like 35 packs. You eventually get a Tom Brady card. Sometimes I think they guarantee it in like events. Oh, but you didn't get a good Tom Brady card. You got the like draft year Tom Brady. And not only that, you got a bad version of it. So the randomness. So you get like draft year Tom Brady, and it's only a bronze tier. And then what's even worse is the cards burn out. So you want to take the bronze tier. You finally got a Tom Brady. You want to take it into the Xbox Live, whatever, the competitive side of things. He only lasts like 3 matches. So there's also a durability. Now you're right back to buying packs to try to get the exact player you want from the exact year at the right rarity, and then try to utilize it. So it's like all the mobile game bullshit taken to its most extreme, malignant version.
Oh wow, we have to deliver information.
Holy shit. We're gonna have to go though. We're gonna have to save and quit
Yep.
here. Did your mom answer you?
Nope.
Just
Let's go.
make sure you text her that you're on your way.
I did.
All right, guys. Peace. Tucker, tell the people.
Bye.
Bye.